There aren't that many incidents,
Yeah.
but we cannot take chances. Egypt, whether we like it or not, we're an extremely hot spot. Whether we like it or not, politically, Egypt is one of the leader of the Arab world. And for most cases, if you want to put pressure on other Arab countries, you have to put pressure on Egypt first. So we're getting a lot of pressure from different sides to agree on things that we don't think is right, or to go along with other schemes and things that are happening. And in the Middle East, I mean, at the present time in Egypt, there is all the peace talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis are taking place right now in Sharm el-Sheikh, and they were at the past couple of days. The peace talks between the different divisions of the Palestinians are taking place in Egypt, in Cairo. Okay, so we have a lot going on at the time. All the talk about the Sudan and what's happening in the Sudan, all the talks are taking place in Egypt. So politically, we are in a very sensitive position, and there's a lot of pressure from either side, and you cannot take chances. The way things are happening all over the world, not just in Egypt, we don't want to take chances on anything.
What percent would you say of the general population really don't like Americans?
Don't like Americans?
Don't like, but because they
Americans as people or Americans as government?
Well, Americans as government.
Americans as government?
Yeah.
Americans as government, I would safely say about 90%.
Don't like.
Don't like American government, or American policy, let's say, the American government policy.
They,
Up till now, okay, they have hopes. They have hopes that Obama will change that.
The nicest shopkeeper this morning called me over. The guy with the beautiful cloth that was working, the handsomely dressed guy, and said, "You American?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." Like, I thought he was going to say, "Great American." He looked at me and said, "You are bad. Get out of Iraq." And I went,
Really?
Yes,
Out
this
of
morning.
Iraq?
Get out of Iraq.
Oh, I
He
see.
said, "You are bad. Get out of Iraq." And I said, "Well," I said, "It's governments." I said,
It's governments.
But like that, and I walked away. I didn't. He wasn't vicious. He wasn't nasty. He was just expressing. Hey, I got lots of guys who express their opinion. I didn't take offense to it, but when he asked me, it took me back for a second. But he was one of the high upper. I'm sure the way he was dressed and the shop he had was the cleanest one we'd seen today. So
Yes, that is a common feeling, not just in Egypt, but I would say most of the Arab world.
Why
We
didn't-
do not like. I don't think even in America you like having
No.
the freeze with the British.
Why
We
didn't?
But there is a big difference.
Yes.
When you're talking about the government, that's why I asked you the question. You're talking about American government or American people? As people, I would say maybe less than 0.5% might not like Americans. And it's mainly just because of what the government.
Why didn't the United Arab League or whatever that group we saw in the building, why didn't they put pressure on Saddam Hussein and some of these other people to open the border and say, if you don't really have this shit, let the people in. What the hell is wrong with you? Let's get peace instead of stonewalling. And some of these guys, a couple of them are nuts. I think Saddam Hussein was kind of crazy. If he didn't have anything, why wouldn't he let you just take a look? Or
Why wouldn't he let the United Nations
yeah, I
in
don't
to
know.
do the
I'm
inspection?
trying to say that sometimes it would be better if, I don't know. I know it's a principle. If you're not going to tell us what to do, Mr.
Yeah, well,
U.S.
he agreed to it though, and then he.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
Personally, I don't like Saddam Hussein.
Excuse me?
Personally, I don't like Saddam Hussein. And I think the overwhelming majority of the population of Egypt does not like Saddam Hussein. Did not like Saddam Hussein. But that still doesn't give any other country a right to occupy another country. I think that was the big I think the other problem is that a lot of people realize that it didn't really have anything to do with arms. It had nothing to do with weapons.
It certainly had nothing to do with
Nothing to do with weapons. And he had nothing to do with that. You know what's the funniest part? I don't know if you remember after the Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty, there was a strip of land in the edge of Sinai between Egypt and Israel that it was disputed whether it was Egyptian or Israeli or part of Palestine, and so it's called the Taba strip, the Taba area, and it went to international arbitration and so on, and the maps showed that it was Egyptian. These very same maps, they considered Kuwait the 26th province of Iraq. And up till the late 60s, early 70s, I'm not sure, but I think at least in the late 60s, Kuwait used to pay taxes to Iraq as a province of Iraq.
I have
That's
no doubt.
international maps.
No doubt. I have no
Okay?
doubt.
The reason for the whole thing is that the Kuwaitis at one time stopped paying these taxes to Iraq. Okay? So he's trying to get it was an agreement between the two sides, and it was working, and the old maps show that it is a province there with independent government, but it was a province of Iraq, according to the maps.
So, like,
Not that it was a smart move, He was absolutely stupid to do something like this. He would have put the United States at a spot if he had pulled out in the right time. Okay, and then talks could have taken place from there. He would still be there, basically, and the country would still be intact.
Absolutely.
Okay, but it was a silly move. But still, the idea of taking over by changing something by power, as I said, we don't like the American government. How would you feel if we come over and invade America or kill your president?
Stand in line.
Even if
Mexico's
he's,
gonna do
even
it
if he's
first.
bad, even if he's bad. Okay?
No,
What I think what people in the West don't understand is that we still have, in the Middle East, and definitely among the Arab countries, the tribal feeling is very strong. This is a member of my tribe. Even if he's the worst member of my tribe, I will still defend him against the foreigner.
Let me take that one step further. There is a undercurrent in America that the Arab countries can't be democratic, that they're not really capable of being democratic, and that most of the people have lived under rulers since the beginning of the pharaohs, and that's what they're comfortable with, and that's what they want. Would you comment on that, please?
Tell me one country that is really democratic.
Well, that's answering a question with a question. What
But
do
there
you
is-
think of my question?
There is, democracy is hypothetical in that sense. Whether there is democracy in the Arab world, I can speak for Egypt. I don't know about the rest of the Arab world, but I can speak for Egypt. We almost have the same democracies that you have. Our newspapers criticize our president, criticize his children and his families. They criticize the ministers. When something wrong happens, it comes out on the papers, whether it's from the good side or the bad side. It's open for discussion. There is free press. People talk about everything. People make jokes about the president all the time and about the government as a whole all the time. There's a lot of that going on. How powerful is it in actual politics? Maybe not, but then it takes time for these things to change. At the present time in Egypt, you have the absolute freedom to sit and say whatever you like. Anywhere, in the coffee shops, in other words, and not during the times of Nasser, for example, you couldn't sit in a coffee shop and criticize the government because next morning you're gone, you're off. Okay? That's not there now. People sit in the coffee shops and make jokes about the president, about the government. It comes out even on the papers about the ministers, maybe not about the president, but about the ministers and so on. There's jokes about it, and it's like the opposition. The opposition papers are being printed in the government presses, and they can write and say whatever they like, and it comes out in the papers, and people see. So there is a level of democracy, but I don't think there's anywhere in the world where there's 100% democracy. But there is a great level of democracy.
It's true. We are not a democracy in the U.S. We're a representative government, and we're represented by people, but we're not a true democracy, one man, one vote.
But the most important thing is, if they think that the Arab countries, to answer your question, cannot live in a democracy and do not want a democracy, why do you have to force it on us? Maybe that's the way we want it.
Yeah.
There are some countries in the world which are doing fantastically well and are not democratic countries. Singapore is an example. Maybe we're better off that way. Maybe we prefer to be that way. What happened to Russia when it changed it from communism to what it is now? It has fallen down.
Yeah.